Hi, Mob, and welcome to the Warrior Heart Rising, the documenting, the capturing, the journaling of the journey, the Warrior Heart Rising in real time, and just me sharing my thoughts, my journey of the Mana Wahine, the power of the woman, the mother, as the seed and the source of her life, her love, her leadership, and her legacy. And I've got a greater clarity and conviction and commitment to what this channel is going to be about, what capturing behind the scenes looks like, and being able to share that with the world as dreaming-led sovereignty, as being culturally grounded and ancestrally guided, and embodied becoming, raising the baseline of the creating the baseline and raising the baseline of the woman who can build an empire and walk and weave the dreaming of being chosen and bringing her mandate, her movements, and her millions, both grassroots and global, simply by existing as myself, my story, and my journey being the seed and the source of my business, of my life, my love, my leadership, and my legacy. And it is the 15th of February, 2026, and I am on beautiful Barkindji country. I'm home, I'm on country. This is the river that I come to. And in real time, there is a 1 meter size goanna who came to visit and came to say hello, and who I was watching very closely in recording this. And I stopped and started a couple of times. He's now gone under my car. Yeah, because those things can move very fast and they're not to be taken lightly. Welcome to filming and recording in the outback of Australia for those that are my international community. And I really felt called and compelled. I've been trying to understand my own experience and why I feel called and compelled to document the journey in real time as it's happening, because I'm coming off of the back of, I'm rising from 10 to 14 days of shutdown, of spiral, of crisis and chaos. And in that 2 weeks, some very significant life events happening. It's also the final week of the year of the snake and the shedding. And it's been really resonating in terms of what this actually means in the whole experience of things. And I felt what it means to rise and redefine what survival and protection and safety look like in this season, but also redefining the baselines of being well as a responsibility and a governing decision and condition for my journey, for my wealth building, for my influence, my impact, and my income. And being brave enough and bold enough to be myself in the world without permission, without masking, without performance, and without apology, and trusting the ancestors' message and call that in becoming my own purpose in this season, in becoming the seed and the source for my love, my life, my leadership, and my legacy, that everything that I want for those that I love and serve will become a ripple effect, that all of the projects or the end outcomes that I'm moving towards, the mandate, the movements, the millions, the black belt world title, the global movement and platform, the impact and the influence, the income, is seeded and sourced in the journey, in the becoming. And I don't have Barkindji or Ngipa language to describe this, so I'm going to lean into my Māori brothers and sisters who I have connected with, their way of describing this, of the Mana Wahine, the matriarch, the custodian, the embodiment, the woman who is walking and weaving and birthing this dreaming of being chosen and being called. And I'm redefining what that actually means and sharing my journey and not having my story seeded or sourced in trauma or adversity, or even centering colonization as the narrative for my experience, prostituting my trauma to get views and likes. Still sharing my truth and my experience of the things that I've faced, the trauma I've been through, the violence that I've experienced, of being the woman who didn't believe she was worthy of existing, and when I chose to speak my truth and I stopped masking and performing. And when I realized in order to be myself in my own life experience, and choosing myself meant that I had to be willing to lose or sacrifice dreams and relationships and a lifetime that I thought would be my forever. And when I spoke that truth into the world, being shown in real time where I was safe, where I was enough, where I was chosen as much as doing the choosing, and where I was allowed and honored and respected for who I was in my whole everything, just existing as myself, nothing less or nothing more, no masking or performing. And the fact that because of how others received me in my truth, without that masking and performing, I then internalized that to not being worthy of being enough, of not being alive. And in this season, it's not about building an empire. It's about building the baseline that can sustain one, that can carry one. It's about coming home to myself and birthing the woman who can be the custodian, the matriarch, the ancestor, the elder, but also the seed and the source of the movement, the mandate, and the millions, of redefining and raising the baseline for my love, my life, my leadership, and my legacy. And that I am enough and I am allowed to be safe and well as governing decisions, as governing conditions for how I move through the world. And that me existing as I am is the seed and the source for everything else to come. And being well as a foundation, and from that, the wealth, the impact, and the sovereignty will grow. So the last 2 weeks, I have been in depression, in anxiety, and the suicidal ideation has been lingering. I spent 4 or 5 days in bed where I struggled. I didn't shower. I didn't eat properly. I didn't hydrate. I didn't drink water. And yet, even despite that, I was still able to get up and make sure that my kids were cared for, even if it wasn't me doing it, to ensure that they had what they needed. And I still paid my rent. And right now I sit here going, part of me goes, how can you be talking about movement, mandates, and millions when you have 150 kilometers of fuel in the car, you have $10 in the bank and probably $20 in coins, and you're meant to be going on your Queensland tour next Saturday. And yet that is enough to meet me here. That is enough. I have food. I have a roof. I have a working phone and working internet. I have a car that runs and I have enough fuel. Even though there's no guarantee of what comes next, there is no backup plan. This is it. And this is meeting myself in the duality of part of me still not believing that I'm worthy or enough or allowed to exist as myself, and that continuing experience of experiencing in real time who has my back as Chantel, who wants Chantel in their life, who engages with me, who includes me, who invites me, who chooses me as much as I choose them, in as I am right now, nothing less or nothing more. And seeing that play out in real time and being able to step back into old spaces, narratives, environments, and seeing in real time who chooses me, who includes me, who wants me around versus just tolerating me or allowing me in those spaces, it broke me. Closing the Kililana space on the 6th of February and seeing who showed up for that closing, who showed up and who didn't, and what that space actually meant, what I fought for that space, what I had to sacrifice for that space to be possible, and then having to close it, having to make governing decisions and create baseline standards for respect, responsibility, and reciprocity in my relationships, in my work, and in my life. And then grieving when that means holding that baseline and holding that standard means that other people will just basically go, fuck you. You're not allowed to exist in our life and we don't accept your standards. And not sacrificing myself and that standard just for proximity, just to be present, and understanding that these few pages don't define the story. They're a chapter, and yet that chapter is fucking painful. So this is a vlog. This is a journal of my experience and the fact that I'm rising from weeks of depression and anxiety not showering, not being able to move, being in paralysis and spiraling, shut down. And yet knowing I can't mask or perform my way through this, I can't motivate or mindset my way through this. This is nervous system regulation. This is identity level work. And this is meeting someone that I've never been before. Who I was before, 2019 and back, the woman who won the world titles, the woman who got 3 degrees, the woman who built a multiple 6-figure business simply by existing as herself and sharing her story with the world and allowing the journey to unfold. The woman who went on to go on to join the Australian wrestling team and become an Oceania wrestling champion, to be on the shadow team of the Commonwealth Games, to try out for the 2016 Rio Olympics and made it all the way to the African Oceania qualifiers, to the woman who was the sole income earner for her family for a significant period of time, to the woman who was just trying to find her way in the world, to take care of her family, be allowed to have her own dreams as an Indigenous woman and mother, whilst also carrying the responsibility and the perceived actual responsibilities versus the perceived responsibilities of my journey and my experience. Sorry, I wasn't watching, and that freaking goanna's back. And he's walking this way, but he's just hanging around. So we'll keep going. But that means I've got to be more mindful of my environment. And in this season, borrowing Mana Wahine from the Māori, leaning into that definition until I can find the Barkanji o Ngimpa language for this. But the Mana Wahine and the mother, the Indigenous woman, as the seed and the source. But this journey being the custodian and the matriarch, but also being the embodiment of the journey itself, and the journey and the story and the experience being the seed and the source. My income, my impact, and my influence. Dreaming-led sovereignty in embodied becoming. And yet going, in order for that to happen, it's happening in real time. It's me being me in my own experience. It's me meeting myself in these shutdowns, and discipline as devotion in this season isn't about the 5 a.m. starts. It's about how can I meet myself in those shutdowns? How can I disrupt the pattern? How can I shorten the distance between the trigger and the shutdown rather than it being weeks? How can I make it into days and then hours and then a moment in given time and resources and practice? Just watching this go, Anna, making sure you're not going to sneak up on me. And the depth of the shutdown and understanding that this is a part of healing. This is a part of rising. And this is a part of weaving and creating the baseline and becoming the woman who can move and accept the calling and being chosen in the level and the depth and the power of her movement and her mandate and her millions. And that everything being built on the conditions and the foundations of me being well and existing as myself, nothing less or nothing more. A woman who had to choose herself when she didn't believe she deserved to exist. Like, I'm still here. The ancestors made sure I was still here. I didn't get a say in this. There is like 150,000 people every single day that don't wake up, or whatever that timeline is. Where is he going? Just for safety. But also being made to feel like I need to prostitute my trauma for marketing, for the metrics to qualify me. My life is my PhD. The very fact that I exist as I am and that I have this calling is all the authority and the permission that I need. And I don't need to perform this. My life is my PhD, is my credibility, my story, my journal is already there. And I'm rebuilding my baselines from the ground up. I'm redefining what that looks like, because if that woman in 2019 and back could do that from crisis and chaos and just winging it and doing the best she could with what she had, without training it, without mastering herself and her skills and her dreaming, with this fuck around and find out attitude and just getting on with it. And then the woman I had to become, or the woman I became from 2020 to 2023, and then the ripple effect of my decisions in 2023 to end my 20-year relationship, speak my truth about domestic violence, and also while still leading, being choosing to be a single mum and choosing myself over masking and performing, and raising the baselines and wanting to matter in my own life experience and what that led to in 2023 to 2025. 2026 is the final shed. And it's not marketing. This is not a gimmick. This documenting the series and the real experience in real time is me. This is sacred work. This is redefining what sovereignty actually means in real time in lived experience. But also that being an Indigenous woman and mother is my strength, is my power, is my responsibility, is my power and my permission and my purpose. And it can be play and passion as well. My story is not seeded or sourced in trauma and colonization or having to justify or explain or prove my own experience and my own existence. Mana Wahine in this season is choosing. Discipline right now is a woman rebuilding her right to exist in her own experience and meeting myself in each moment as it is rather than as I want it to be. Grounding the nervous system, regulating my nervous system, reweaving the identity and moving at the pace of peace and trust. Love and peace and safety being foundational to my journey, not an afterthought, being well as a responsibility and a governing and that safety, dignity and devotion are allowed. That I'm allowed to exist as myself in my own story, not money first, baseline first. Income, impact, and influence. The mandate, the movements, and the millions become possible when the baseline is grounded in being well, in being safe and protected and sovereign, in self and in the journey. And it's documenting the walking and the weaving of the becoming, of the dreaming, of the mandate of being chosen. And the fact that in order to become a black belt world champion, in order to become the woman who can be the custodian and the matriarch of this dreaming and this journey and weave dreaming and purpose, body, business, culture, wealth, legacy, life, leadership, entrepreneurship, jiu-jitsu, storytelling, while raising the baselines of existence, of life, love, leadership and legacy, the foundations. And this dreaming and journey is being walked out loud and in real time because I know I'm not alone in redefining the baselines, in owning my shit, but also being done with my own shit and the shit in my life. And that understanding that I'm redefining and raising the baselines of what it means to be an Indigenous woman and mother in 2026. Hold that thought. And it's doing it in real time, perfectly imperfect. So as I said, this whole channel and understanding is now that I have more clarity, conviction and commitment to documenting the journey, but also the journey and the becoming. Dreaming-led sovereignty and embodied becoming is the business, is the seed and the source for the impact, the influence and the income. And the courage to document it while rising from depression and anxiety and suicidal ideation of meeting myself in 2026 as the woman who has $10 in her bank account and had to call a friend and ask her to fund, be her patron, be her angel investor for my Queensland Warrior Heart activation, for being able to be real of meeting myself for the first time in having my PTSD acknowledged medically, of trying to understand ADHD and neurodivergent executive dysfunction, of going, well, how can I win 3 world titles and go Jennifer Hudson or Arlen Hamilton or Michelle Obama, Oprah invited me to an experience now to speak on their platforms and to sit in yarning and storytelling and circle with them. I could do that like that and be energized by it. If I had 3 back-to-back bookings tomorrow, I could walk in as I am, and yet I break down and shut down at doing a budget, at looking at my numbers, at doing a business plan, and understanding and being able to meet myself here and being allowed to exist in my own life, and that being well is not an afterthought. It's not a luxury. Self-care is a responsibility, not an afterthought. What does it mean to be a single mother who also has her own dreams as a woman and is finding herself again after years of being stuck in crisis and chaos, survival mode, spiraling and shut down paralysis, freezing, having to feel like she needs to fight to just be herself, to feeling like she's not allowed to be herself or enough or worthy to just exist in the world as she is, and coming from that very real lived example and experience of when I did speak my truth, of people going, we don't accept you, we don't choose you, and in some cases we don't want you, you're not allowed in our life because of who you are. So this isn't about building an empire, it's about raising the baseline, because when the woman becomes the seed and the source of her own life and being well becomes governance, this is where real wealth, this is where real power comes from. And this is also about recording while there's boats and goannas happening. And I debated about recording this, and I let it resonate and sit in my heart to go, you know what? We're just capturing it. I haven't trained in 2 weeks. I don't have a gym where I can train at for jiu-jitsu. I don't have a business plan. My most consistent income is Centrelink right now, Australian government benefits of $2,000 a month. My rent is $650 a week. My baseline expenses that I know at the moment is about $1,800 to meet baseline, $2,000 a week to breathe, over $2,000 to be able to start to address debt and to start to be able to build resources and safety for the journey, savings, investment, funds. And when I realized it's sovereignty is about not chasing outcomes, it's about becoming the seed and the source. It's not about scaling, it's about stabilizing deeper and allowing those roots to exist as they are. And I'm just moving through my notes because you know what? This is important. And it's not about proving anything. And wealth isn't about money. Wealth is the baseline of a woman who can hold it, who can be the steward, the seed and the source of her wealth. And wealth being built on the conditions of being well. And it's devotion to that baseline. It's conviction and commitment to playing the long game, to not shutting down out of scarcity and survival mode when you become triggered, being able to meet my triggers and disrupt the pattern, weaving the new identity, birthing the woman who can carry this dreaming. And discipline isn't punishment anymore, because when I am well, everything can flow. All the dreaming, all of what comes next, all that I feel called to do, the projects, the end outcomes are just ripple effects. They will happen as a natural consequence of me walking this journey, of me finding the clarity, the conviction, the confidence to just be myself in my own experience. And that is all I need, is just the next step. I don't need the whole damn blueprint. My journey is the blueprint, because I'm the first one in my experience to be doing what I'm doing holistically. The athlete, the brand, the woman, the mother, whilst healing as the woman into being able to carry the threads of being a mother and an auntie as the first foundations for the entrepreneur, the athlete, the warrior heart, and Kilalana, which these two are movements that I feel that I'm called and chosen to bring into the world. But the entrepreneur and the athlete is the embodiment, and the entrepreneur is the thing that makes that all possible. But also being brave enough to invite people to walk this journey with me, to create a community in a sacred container, sacred ceremony and country, virtually, online, for other women who are also raising their baselines, who are also redefining what safety, what protection, what survival mode look like. Redefining the baselines for themselves, their love, their life, their leadership, and their legacy, and the truth that we are allowed to exist as we are in our own experiences. And that being well and being ourselves is a foundation governing decision and condition, not an afterthought. And it's not about success. It's about, what are my children witnessing? What are those who look up to me as someone that they go, yep, that's someone I look to for guidance, for example? What are they witnessing from my journey, from my actions, from my words, my energy, how I walk into a room, how I carry myself in my day-to-day, the outcomes of how I show up? And it's not about today being glamorous. It's about being able to meet myself as many times as it takes in every freeze, in every shutdown, in every paralysis, and being able to hold myself from love and responsibility, reciprocity, being about healing and about eldership, not about weaponizing myself or performing or hiding, but healing in coming home to myself. It's a living archive of becoming. Simplicity and safety are the foundations, and a build that comes from nervous system regulation, not from urgency or high performance. This is just me being myself, being a black belt world champion, building a multiple $1 million brand and business, building intergenerational wealth of legacy and leadership, writing a book, telling a story, creating a container and a community of warrior-hearted women, the inner circle, writing a global bestseller, funding my own documentary, being my first sponsor, an impact investor, patron, are all natural ripple effects, are all outcomes. Being able to provide for my children, being able to be safe and regulated in my motherhood and loving them not from triggers and not from trauma wounds or abandonment and attachment and survival wounds and grief, but being able to meet them as a grounded, regulated woman and mother and being able to parent them from that. It's documenting a journey of building a sovereign life and of being my own purpose and being the seed and the source for my love, my life, my leadership, and my legacy. And through that, being a mother and being Mana Wahine, being Bakanji and Impa as the seed and the source, and Auntie as the roles that lay the foundations, are the trunk for the athlete, the entrepreneur, the storyteller, the matriarch, the custodian of the mandate, the movement, and the millions. And it's not about building an empire. It's about building a home, the becoming, the seed, becoming sovereign, dreaming-led sovereignty, and embodied becoming. Like, I know I'm repeating myself a lot, but I'm cementing this here as much for you as for myself. And it's documenting this in real time and my healing, my reclamation and my remembering, but also my birthing and rising of coming home to myself in body, in dreaming, culture, spirit, country, connection, identity. And that being the inner circle, the spiral for the body, the business, the culture, the motherhood, and the legacy. I am the case study. I am the business case. The journey is the offering and the invitation. The journey and the story and the woman is the offer, is the invitation. And it's a documented, disciplined evolution of a sovereign Indigenous woman building her life out loud, walking and weaving the dreaming, and accepting being chosen and called, simply by existing as myself and being bravely and boldly me, without apology, without permission, without masking, without performing, and moving at the pace of peace and trust. And it's allowing people to invest in the journey, not just the result, inviting partnership and contribution, and how weaving them together is not about creating brands or different narratives that compete and that are in conflict with each other, but it's one narrative, one seed, my journey, my becoming, the woman, the warrior heart, the mother. And it's about documenting and the threads of the athlete, the entrepreneur, the storyteller, warrior heart, and Killalana become lenses. They become threads through which I share the journey and the experience. And it's also about having the courage that I'm rebuilding after shattering, after breaking. And I'm choosing to leave what no longer serves, what no longer belongs, what no longer respects and honors, and choosing to lay that here. And like the snake, the year of the snake, shedding it and meeting myself here and understanding that the next best step is the key, is the blueprint. And this time it's about building from sovereignty and structure and discipline, whilst also building from anxiety and depression, mental illness, suicidal ideation, meeting and accepting my history of PTSD and violence, speaking my truth and not running from that, and yet not prostituting my trauma for views or validation or credibility or even opportunities to qualify me to stand on stages or be in rooms or to be invited or to get paid. And it's documenting it in real time. A Mana Wahine wayfinding and documenting the weaving of the dreaming and the journey. Real time on the river, you mob. And it's about documenting the weaving of identity, of reclamation and remembering while rising, of body, of story, of entrepreneurship, of culture, of wealth, while also raising the baselines of love, life, leadership, and legacy. As I am right now, as a single mum, learning about ADHD and PTSD, neurodiversity, all the things, or going, how the fuck do I build a business that honors who I am, but also can resource my family, my dreams, and built on the conditions of me being well and not burnt out in the delivery and the doing of the business, but also building a business that can become self-sustaining. Lots of questions and lots of baselines. And this dreaming is being walked and weaved in real time and documenting the journey. It's a living journey. It's not something that I'm telling after the fact. It's having the courage to say, this is it. And it's building the baseline of what we accept as normal, of what we accept as the status quo as Indigenous women and mothers, as community leaders, as the ones on the front line, raising the next generation while having to raise ourselves, particularly for women who don't have the elders and the sisterhood circles that we all crave and that we are told is our norm and our cultural experience. Those that are having to find their identity through the internet, through books, and through learning and being taught on country because you don't have culture being handed to you and being passed down to you. You're having to fight. You're having to ask. You're having to seek or search for culture, but also creating space and capacity to receive and to be guided. The rebuilding and redefining of normal and the baselines. Reclamation of well-being as governance, and being well is not self-care. It is governance. It is foundational. It is conditional to you being well. You being well is conditional to you being wealthy, to you being able to serve, to you being able to show up for others is also about being able to show up for yourself. Sovereignty begins in the nervous system. Wealth is not money alone. It is leverage, time, networks, legacy, ecosystems, opportunity, invitations that are built on reciprocity, relational, respect, ecosystems, nurturing environments, but not outsourcing my safety and my protection to others or even country and connection and identity. That is something that I bring with me into each room. And the more I come home to myself, the more I allow myself to become myself, I can just walk into any room as I am. It's no longer about walking in two worlds. It's about being able to be myself, and that everything else becomes a ripple effect of that truth. Movies that resonate with my experience right now and that are guiding examples for me that I look to for teachings are Moana as my cultural journey, Kung Fu Panda as my athlete and martial arts journey, Harriet Tubman as my matriarch and warrior journey, Madam C.J. Walker and Alan Hamilton as my entrepreneur journey, people like Serena Williams and older women who have started later on in life will come back to their athlete journeys and their physical journeys of being well and strong as the example. Leadership is not sacrifice. Self-leadership comes before the leadership of others. That is eldership. Self-trust is embodied, and that is the movement. The weaving of intergenerational wealth, the seeding of intergenerational wealth and legacy, the embodiment of leadership without burnout, the becoming of the future elder and ancestor. This is not a healing journey. This isn't about content. This is about story. This is about calibration. This is about permission to be myself while also documenting the becoming. And it's walking and weaving the dreaming in real time, raising the baselines, documenting love as self, children, community, work, life, nervous system, health, vitality, joy, passion and purpose, and being able to be with grief and experiences and the triggers and working with myself rather than against myself. and activating my full potential, awakening and alchemizing my journey to then be able to amplify the impact into the world. Leadership as decisions and discipline and boundaries. Legacy as wealth, systems, opportunities, ecosystems, the story, the blueprint that is left behind, the pathways, the possibility, the permission, the example. And these are governing pillars, a documented path of Mana Wahine wayfinding, building sovereign baselines for life, leadership, love and legacy. A woman who chose herself when I didn't believe I deserved to exist and is rebuilding her baselines from the ground up. It's not marketing, this is sacred work. But here's the key: we do not center the suicide attempts. We do not center the collapse. We do not center the exclusion, the trauma, the violence. We center the choice. This is about Mana Wahine. Sovereignty in this season is about choice. It's about courage. It's about conviction that the woman and the journey is worth rising for, even if the belief and the evidence isn't there yet. The choice to get back up, to meet myself in the spiral and the paralysis, to not perform or mask, not just for the world, but for myself as well, to not live in dissonance and to create congruency and trust, to refuse to self-abandon, to stay in paralysis, to redefine what my identity is, and learning that I am enough as I am, that I am allowed, I am safe, and I am worthy of just being myself in my own experience and my journey. And that is all the permission and authority I need to do this. There's my alarm. And the coil of the weaving at the very core is the Mana Wahine, the woman and the mother. Wrapped around that is dreaming-led sovereignty and embodied becoming. Regulated becoming, nervous system, time and identity. Wrapped around that is raising the baseline of love, life, leadership, and legacy. Redefining and raising the baseline of survival, of protection, and of safety. An embodied sovereign becoming, the athlete, the entrepreneur, the cultural leader, the impact, the influence, the income, the mandate, the millions, and the movement. That's the coil. It's a spiral. It's a seed that has a root system. And it's now about developing that root system to grow the trunk for what comes next. Thank you for walking and weaving this journey with me. And if you've gotten this far, thank you. And this is an invitation to join the free Warrior Heart community on School, where I share more of this. And people are walking their own journeys of coming home to themselves and activating their warrior hearts in their own experience. And this is also an invitation to keep your eyes open for, or to check out my Stand store, links below, for any active in-person opportunities or online upcoming workshops, masterclasses, and my activation tours, where when I'm in an area, I hold a warrior heart activation session. It's a storytelling session with a Q&A, and then there are VIP or intimate opportunities for those who want a little bit more in-depth experience. And for those that are really brave and ready and called to more and don't want to walk their own journeys alone, this is also an invitation to join the waitlist, or if you're watching this at a future date, to apply to join the Warrior Heart Inner Circle. This is for women who are on the journey, who are redefining their baselines, who are done with their own shit and are done not existing in their own experience, and who are willing and ready to redefine being well as a baseline and governing decision for their life, their love, their leadership, and their legacy. And to trust it in becoming the seed and the source of your own experience, that everything else just becomes a natural ripple effect. Because when we know ourselves and we're allowed to be ourselves, that becomes the power. That becomes the permission. That becomes the purpose. And we shouldn't need permission or to believe that we need to earn being worthy or enough or safe, or to perform or mask those things to exist in our own life and our own experiences. And as of this date, the first 30 founding members will be invited into the first 12 months of this inner circle at the founding membership rate of $49 per month. Or if you want to pay for a year up front, it's an investment of $500 in your own becoming, but us walking this journey together, sharing behind the scenes, documenting in real time, and us walking this journey together, not me being some guru or some coach up the front, but us doing this together in community. And this community will be capped at 100 members at any given time, lifetime members. There's no set time that you're allowed to exist in this community, this container, this creating our own culture and ceremony and connection from a place of being well and being ourselves in our own life experience. Thank you for being here, and leave a comment, hit like or subscribe, share this with someone, or invite someone to subscribe or follow my journey wherever you're finding this, because that allows the journey to be amplified. It allows it to reach more people. It allows it to exist in the world beyond you and beyond me and beyond this moment. Big love, your mob. And this is the 15th of February 2026, and documenting the dreaming, the walking and the weaving of the Warrior Heart Rising and of Chantel Thompson.